Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it! So here's what you get. From Canada, Ryan and Ruban.
All right. Welcome
to
the worst of the best podcast. I am your host, Ryan, and with me today and always is my handsome youngest brother, Ruben.
And with me is my handsome youngest brother, Ryan.
It's a pleasure to be here. We're recording this at the tail end of 2019, but I will say this will be released in the new year of 2020. So happy New Year to you and your family.
And to you and yours.
And to all of our listeners who are listening abroad and near, Happy New Year. And may 2020 bring us many great new things for us to pick the worst from.
Awesome. What do we have the best of today?
Well, that's right. So if you're a first-time listener of our show, Ruben and I, again, we don't create these lists. We just take lists that are created for us by various departments of the internet. We decide what is the worst of that list, because no matter what list is created, no matter what categorically list is created, nor how it's created, there's always something that's the worst. And it's not always number 10. Sometimes it's number 1, and that's where Ruben and I come in, because we decide what is actually the worst from that list. So, Ruben, speaking of the 2000s, if you can believe it, we're going to be hitting the 20th year of the 2000s.
I remember the year 1999, it's like last month.
Did you party like it was 1999, or?
Yeah, I did, because it was 1999.
There was no other way to do it.
Just by default.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree, Ruben. I remember 1999, and I was glued to CNN. I was actually watching CNN and all the news channels waiting for the Y2K to destroy the Earth. I was ready. I was somewhat disappointed nothing happened.
Yeah, well, I hear you. Kim Jong-un said that he was going to have a Christmas gift for the U.S.
Yeah.
You know, if you caught that recently.
Yeah, I did actually. I did hear that there was supposed to be some sort of threat on Christmas Day, or maybe the gift could have been a nuclear bomb. Part of me was kind of like, okay, well, let's, poop or get off the pot. Enough of this talk.
Yeah. He's such a tease.
He is such a nuke tease. Our list today, Ruben, what we'll be breaking down is 10 historic predictions of life in the 2000s. So from various magazines and people from the past, of course, they envisioned what the 2000s might be like. We all like to try and guess what the future will look like. It's human nature to dream of the future, after all. So it shouldn't be surprising that throughout the 20th century, people were already looking to the 2000s and dreaming of what life would be like in the next millennium. So, Ruben, we've collected 10 of the most interesting and some are funny predictions of what modern life would look like. So you and I should be experiencing some of these things. So sometimes they were surprisingly close to the mark, even scarily so, but however, most of the time they were quite wrong. Just wait for the train to pass. You can probably hear it. Can you hear the train? Oh, really? Okay. Ruben, why don't you start with number 10?
In the 1950s, a group of experts took to the papers to tell people what life would be like in the year 2000. Some of their guesses were surprisingly accurate, such as the rise of the U.S. as the world's dominant power, which is kind of waning, and the creation of the International Space Station.
Oh.
On the subject of women, though, they missed the mark somewhat. According to them, the woman of the year 2000 would be 6 feet tall and wear a size 11 shoe. There are some women who do that.
Yeah, but this was the 1950s, keep in mind.
Wasn't there any women then?
Maybe they were smaller in stature back then. So they were saying that the majority of women in the 2000s would be 6 feet tall and wear size 11 shoes with shoulders like a wrestler and muscles like a truck driver. Wow.
When have you seen a muscular truck driver? Never referenced. You should see the muscles on that guy. He was like a truck driver.
No, to be fair, they just said muscles like a truck driver. So they're just picturing a lot of tall, broad, fat A truck driving woman.
Yeah. They also predicted that she would be doing the same work as men.
Mm-hmm.
She would naturally have to conform to the same standards. Some of that's kind of true. There's obviously been a shift since the 50s, in the past 70 years.
Yeah.
She would have short cropped hair and wear practical clothing. There's definitely a group of women that do that.
Are you saying there's not a group of women that have short cropped hair and wear practical men-like clothing?
There definitely is.
Oh, there is. Sorry.
Yeah, there is.
It could be mistaken for a truck driver.
I don't know about that part. I don't know.
All right. What else do they have to say about this?
Well, because science, Ryan, would have perfected the balanced ration of vitamins, proteins, and minerals by the year 2000, her proportions would be perfect, though Amazonian. Which, by the way, they're very short people. Anyways, she would play the same sports that men do and would probably compete against them in football, baseball, and wrestling, which happened with Andy Kaufman. He competed against women in wrestling.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He did.
This one's the most shocking of all. They even thought she might be presidential material.
Well, they're pretty darn close on this. Not only were they going to be presidential material, we literally had a second place person who was female, that being Hillary Clinton, of course, who lost to the illustrious Donald Trump.
Who ironically has the body of a trucker.
And the hands of a young woman.
To be fair, Hillary did get the vast
popular
majority of the votes.
Yeah.
She got the popular vote. Yeah.
So this was taken. It was an Associated Press article, and it was titled "How Experts Think We'll Live in 2000 AD" from the December 27th, 1950 Robosian article or paper. So it's an Associated Press article, but this was written in 1950. So for them, it was a half a century later. Half a century.
Yeah, this is literally 70 years ago to the day of us recording this.
That's weird. They were close. Let's just say that they were close. There's definitely women who look like truckers, and we almost had a female president. So that's not a bad prediction. Good job, guys. Okay, number 9. Schools run by robots. A series of pictures recently surfaced on a Japanese forum taken from a Showa-era newspaper that were an attempt to predict what Japan would look like in 2011. And many of the scenes look like they've come straight out of the 1950s science fiction comics. In one of the images, a camera and some water jets create an automated fire extinguisher system, technology that is widespread today. In another, people stand around in spacesuits staring at screens that seem to show in-progress space exploration. In the distance is an elevated stadium which looks like a science fiction habitation biome, all things which are not common in the modern world. Beside it, however, aircraft are taken off vertically, and the roofs of skyscrapers are covered in vegetation. These technologies have existed for years. Perhaps the most disturbing scenes, though, are to be found in the picture of a 2011 classroom. In it, the teacher has been replaced by a slideshow showing a math question. The children have computers on their desks to input the correct answer. If they don't, they are beaten by a robot, which is effectively a big club on wheels. In the corner, a child grins as it is restrained by some kind of timeout robot. Everything looks very clean, though, so at least there's that.
Oh, fantastic.
A robot that goes up and down the aisle giving you corporal punishment for wrong answers.
Because the machine did not teach the child properly, the child should be punished for that.
That makes sense. And I love how there is a timeout robot. Do you see it there, Rube? There's a robot holding the child.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. That's a weird picture. That's pretty crazy.
It's not far off. People learn online. People learn through slideshows. And fortunately, most of the beatings are not done by robots.
To be fair, Ruben, they enter their answers into the computer, I see. But they have to do it in their heads. The question they have on the board there, Ruben, 3,000 times 25. Can you do it in your head?
75,000?
Very good. You would not be beaten.
No. Is it 75 or 750,000?
What's 25 times 3?
Well, yeah, 75. But just 75,000?
Then you add 3. That's right. Come on, Ruben.
You never doubt yourself in math once in a while?
No, but I mean, you got it right.
I know. Sometimes after getting it right, I still doubt myself. That never happens to you?
No, I never doubt myself.
Well, good for you.
All right. Number 8, Rube.
Everything would be plastic. There was an 8-minute video from 1957 which explores a house in the future. Fortunately for us, our modern homes look nothing like it. For starters, everything is plastic. Yes, everything. The floors, the walls, the ceilings, countertops, the windows. All plastic. As cups and the plates. In the kitchen, the dishes are cleaned by a retractable dishwasher, which uses ultrasonic waves while doubling as storage space. That does make sense, though.
Yeah.
The cooking range, meanwhile, isn't gas. It isn't even electric. It uses radiation waves, though it doesn't look like there's a protective screen. The narrator claims the bathroom contains objects of pure fantasy. These turn out to be an electric toothbrush, an electric razor, which we hardly bat an eyelid today. The main entertainment in the living room is a built-in stereo system.
Nice.
Something so phenomenally outdated that it's almost laughable. Because we got Google, Home, Alexa.
It's crazy.
Siri. There's a scene, however, where one of the actors is speaking to her friend over the phone while getting ready to go out without having to hold, listen to this, the telephone to her ear. So they're right about loudspeakers.
It's pretty crazy, though. So this is 1957. This was 63 years ago. That's a long time ago. And the speakerphone idea is pretty cool. They were bang on about electric toothbrush, electric razor. So
right about plastic. There's a lot of plastic.
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, just check the ocean.
Yeah, there's a plastic island in the ocean right now. In 1977, Rube, a group of middle schoolers wrote to their local newspaper with their predictions of what life would be like in the year 2000.
In the year 2000.
I love that segment on Conan. I love how they did it even after 2000, like for a few years.
Yeah.
Most of their answers were surprisingly sensible, predicting the rise of things like electric cars and environmental issues while hoping for lower taxes and a better crime rate. They were clearly a product of their age. Many expressed fears of a fuel shortage or another Great Depression. A couple of their guesses, though, were much wilder. Martin Bohan said that by 2000, we'd all be living in round buildings. All workers would be robots, and everyone would have a robot maid, and a button which would bring them anything they wanted. Well, this just starts to sound like a fantasy from a kid. It all seems rather far-fetched until he casually slips in a prediction that we have pocket computers containing everything we can name. With the rise of smartphones in 2007, he seems to have guessed that one perfectly. If you were to ask me this question now, I was born in 75, and let's say you asked me this question in 1985. Hey, Ryan, what will the future be like? I don't think I ever would have come up with a pocket computer as an idea.
I would have thought of the pocket computer when I had my first cell phone.
There you go.
Even though I used to have a Palm Pilot.
Right. Yeah, I remember the Palm Pilots.
Yeah. They seemed to phase out before smartphones even became a thing.
Right. Yeah, Palm Pilots, they tapped into the internet a little bit, but they were slow and...
Oh, they were on to something, though.
They were so close.
I had one. I loved it.
John Viccioni thought that the year 2000 would look much better than 1977, predicting that the pollution problem would be solved and that cars would float on air. He himself would have a job designing modern houses run entirely by solar power, with furniture that folded out of the walls and button-operated controls. Now, some of this is true.
Murphy beds?
Mm-hmm. The furniture coming out of walls. Japan is big on this because they're so limited in space. They literally pull out the kitchen table and they put it away and things like that.
Yeah, tiny homes. I've seen that. Or New York City apartments.
And solar power run homes, people do have that. It's not common,
sure. Our brother does.
Yes. Is it fully solar powered?
No.
That's not too bad, John Viccioni from 1977.
But there's more. There's more.
Number 6, Rube.
There would be flying firemen and robot maids.
More of those robot maids.
Hey, a man can dream. Between 1899 and 1910, a series of French artists produced a series of pictures showing what they thought life would be like in the year 2000. Some which were displayed at the World Exhibition in Paris. The idea was to predict what the 20th century would bring. None of them predicted the horrors of the First and Second World Wars, the rise of communism, but they did predict that automation would become a big issue. just not in the way they thought it would. From the pictures, they clearly saw the robots of the future taking the place of the domestic staff. Domestic staff, Ryan. Do you have domestic staff?
Well, I love how robots are taking the place of domestic staff. So basically, the robots are replacing me and the wife.
Yeah. I put away leftovers just a few moments ago. Anyways, the domestic staff they saw in the homes of the upper classes of their day. In one image, a robot cuts customers' hair in a barbershop, while another made pilots a cleaning robot with a stick and a wire.
Would you ever have a robot, even with today's technology, cut your hair?
What about the suck cut?
The vacuum cut? That's just terrible.
Yeah. What about the Roomba?
Does the Roomba work?
It's just like an electric carpet sweeper.
I had to move chairs all the way to vacuum crumbs off the floor. There's no way that circular thing can get into those nooks and crannies. Am I wrong?
I'm sure in some homes it will do an okay job. I was reading on a friend's post recently that, hey, should I get a Roomba? And there was more complaints than praise.
Okay.
The dream is there that this has got to stop. Me sweeping my home has to stop. A robot has to do it. So, I don't know. As time goes on, maybe it'll get better.
Maybe. I'll just vacuum by hand. It's fine.
Every science fiction fan likes to dream of flying, though. These artists were no exceptions. Another image shows an aerocabs port, where some well-dressed Victorian people are boarding a flying taxi, which looks like a yellow train with big wings stuck on the side.
Sorry, it sounds like the Fifth Element movie.
Yeah. A flying car complete with a propeller.
They also talked about flying firemen, which is weird. I guess it'd be handy to get to tall buildings that are on fire, maybe?
Sure, yeah.
Because they use ladders, so it's fair.
What they didn't predict was flying firefighters.
They're non-gender specific.
Exactly. Remember the first thing? That woman would be doing a man's job, quote unquote.
That's right.
Well, that's why we say firefighters now, because they're not just all men.
So there's a short movie clip, Ruben, from 1939 that tried to predict what clothing would look like in the year 2000. Unsurprisingly, it is often wildly inaccurate, but in some ways it predicted the future bang on. It says the skirt will disappear entirely, with women going on to wear trousers. True.
That makes more sense.
While dresses are still popular, the vast majority of women today tend to wear jeans as their main choice of casual wear. In the clip, though, this new outfit for women is also accompanied by an electric belt, which would supposedly adapt the body to climate changes. Elsewhere, it predicts that women will wear dresses made out of net, and while their version, with weird coils of metal over the breast, never became fashionable.
Madonna.
That's right. Yeah, she did wear metal over the breast, but it never became fashionable, Rube, despite Madonna's attempt. Shirts made out of fabric mesh are a fashionable part of the modern wardrobe. Aluminum dresses and flashlights as hair accessories never caught on.
I think Lady Gaga's got something in there.
Oh, maybe.
But no, it's never caught on. That's true.
Men's fashion in the year 2000 is concluded in just over 10 seconds. Men's clothes won't have any collars, ties, or pockets. We will instead wear a strange set of overalls. We'll carry a radio ribbon, a telephone, and a set of small containers at all times, along with candy for our cuties, something that might get you arrested today.
What?
Well, here's the video.
Some of the most famous fashion designers in the U.S. today have been asked to forecast what Eve will look like in AD 2000. One idea is a dress that can be adapted for morning, afternoon, or evening. It's the sleeves what does it. According to another artist, one dress of the future will consist of transparent net. The net, probably to catch the males. Apparently in AD 2000 we shall be having a hair-raising time. Yet another designer goes so far as to believe that skirts will disappear entirely. Shoes will have cantilever heels, and an electric belt will adapt the body to climatic changes. The lightly clad woman of tomorrow, ooh, swish, will move in an atmosphere that's scientifically kept at the right temperature. The future bride in a wedding dress of glass. What the groom will wear, apart from a worried look, isn't mentioned. A dress of aluminium, with a sash to change it for afternoon or evening, and an electric headlight to help her to find an honest man. As for him, if he matters at all, there won't be any shaving, collars, ties, or pockets. He'll be fitted with a telephone, a radio, and containers for coins, keys, and candy for cuties.
So they mentioned in the video, no shaving for men.
Well, we're seeing it now. Men love the beards today. As you are wearing one now, Ruben.
I am. I right now, I think I didn't go for my biggest beard ever.
Oh, really? You're going for the...
I don't really know. Right now, I'm like a hair, no pun intended, really. I'm like shaving it off. I always wish that I knew what I look like with a big beard. I suspect that the fashion trend's going to go the other way. So I'm like, now's the time. Now's the time.
All right,
So
you ready?
number 4.
This is taken from the Los Angeles Time magazine, 1988.
Barcoded money and future rock. In 1988, the LA Times magazine published a special issue predicting what life would be like in 25 years' time. Their visions of the distant year of 2013 are surprisingly accurate in some areas. They even correctly predicted the internet when they said the world's computers and electronic devices would all be connected to the Integrated Services Digital Network, ISDN. In other ways, though, they missed the mark completely. For instance, the article predicts that bills would have barcodes on them to avoid corruption and crime. Finally, that's been taken care of, right?
Yeah, there's no more crime.
The city of LA would have to make businesses stagger their working times to cut down traffic. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Interesting.
That's not practical.
They probably didn't even...
practical 25 years ago. It's not practical now.
No.
Yeah. Elon Musk, though, is working on that.
I hope he can do it for LA's sake.
Oh, yeah, just Elon. All hail Elon. And no, most of us haven't replaced our pets with robotic versions, and robot butlers still are not a thing. Remember Rosie the butler?
Yeah, Rosie on the Jetsons.
Even though they've been predicted by science fans for decades.
Most of these predictions have involved some sort of robot help.
I like how people aren't dreaming of having enough money that they don't have to have it made, but just not to have a person there, just something doing it.
Right. Yeah.
And because nobody wants to interact with people.
I do have an idea. Since we don't have the technology to get robot help, we could just find a lesser status human and get them to do the work for us.
I'm not sure how that could be possible.
I'm thinking outside the box here. I know, but there might be a way to usurp the freedom of people and make them work for us for a low, if barely any kind of wage.
Nobody in America would ever dream of doing that.
That's true. You're right. Back to the Future 2 was plausible, Rube.
Which parts?
Well, this one's a little different. In 2014, Business Insider asked people over the age of 40 what they used to think the future would look like when they were young. The conclusion, most people thought that the 2000s would look a lot more like Back to the Future Part 2 than it actually does. One respondent wrote that when the film first came out, it seemed like a fairly reasonable, if slightly optimistic view of what life would be like in the 2000s. They genuinely thought that by now we would have discovered a way to feed ourselves with just nutritional pills, and that again, flying cars and fusion power would be a common sight. Another user said they thought that hoverboards in the film would certainly exist today as a toy. They had expected jetpacks to exist as a form of transportation. It seems rather funny to us, but when you consider that the film was released a quarter of a century ago, it's reasonable for someone then to assume that we would have a manned base on the moon by now, or that we'd all be riding in self-driving cars. After all, wouldn't we in the present expect those things to exist 25 years from now?
Sure. So self-driving car is kind of happening.
Very soon. I mean, they've tested that Google car, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, our cousin's husband is lawyer for Uber over their autonomous semi-rigs. Lobbying for that. They think that in 10 years, that's what will be happening.
Would you get into a driverless car?
Yeah, dude. I almost died today in a car accident. The skin of my teeth, I tell you. I was just going around a corner down by Woody's Lagoon there, those windy roads.
Yeah.
Another car in oncoming traffic was going so fast that their vehicle, as they went around the corner, it skipped towards me, losing its traction.
Oh, right.
And I was like, oh, here we go. I'm about to die.
Oh, no. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the self-driving car, the way it works, nobody's allowed to break the law. You're not allowed to. Like, it won't let you speed. It won't let you. It's aware of the rules of the road. It won't let you tailgate.
Yeah. My girls in the band are like, I'm 5. I'm too young to die. I'm 9. I got stuff I need to do.
Oh, they're more ambitious than I was at 9. All right. Number 2, Rube.
Cities suspended by balloons.
When was this thought of?
Well, a report in the UK's Office for Science, prepared for the British government, has recently revealed what people in the past thought of cities would now look like. Titled, A Visual History of the Future, it reveals some of the most innovative plans put forward in the past for dealing with the problems of the modern city. Some are crazier than others. Coastal problems are a legitimate issue for the modern world, but so far we haven't found an ambitious solution. For the most part, our answer is to use hard engineering techniques like flood walls to protect our cities from coastal damage. In the past, much more ambitious ideas were put forward, such as this plan for the so-called Sky City. In this plan, chosen communities would be hoisted into the air with huge helium balloons to protect them from damage. So stupid. These contraptions would make use for cloud skippers, which would float on the jet stream, allowing them to be maintained in the air with minimal resources. The idea was a competition entry designed for a housing solution to be used in the aftermath of a coastal disaster.
I guess the advantage, if you're actually able to live above the ground, some of the advantages would be weather control. You could actually get the city above the rain. You could not be injured in a earthquake, tornado, tsunami, forest fires. So there is some advantage to have yourself elevated off the ground at some degree or another. Interesting, but I don't know how you could ever create anything strong enough to lift a city.
Yeah.
That's a lot of helium. It's very flammable.
Even Webster was unrealistic. Remember Webster?
Well, yeah, what did he say?
Webster, the little boy in the 80s TV show. In the beginning of the show, he held down balloons and he started floating away.
Oh, did he? I forgot about that. Okay. All right, last one, number 1. Multi-level traffic. Okay. So another unusual solution from the same report was drawn up by Colin Buchanan in 63. Yeah, so this was the 60s for number 2 and number 1 here. At the same time, car ownership was growing in the UK and was only expected to grow quicker. So the Ministry of Transport was worried about the effect this would have on roads. So they began thinking of potential solutions. They came up with a plan that would fundamentally alter the look of cities in the UK. Alongside more conventional solutions such as using speed bumps to encourage slower driving, they came up with a plan to separate pedestrian and vehicle traffic by building raised walkways for pedestrians. Multi-level traffic would allow the city to handle a much higher volume of traffic without having to tackle high levels of congestion or using too much space. The sheer cost of building these new concrete tiers probably meant the plan was never truly possible, but it's an interesting vision of what the UK cities could have looked like. It would almost certainly would have improved things too, unless you were a cyclist. I'm looking at the picture here that was drawn in the 60s. So they basically have people walking in this way, cars driving on the bottom. They kind of have this, obviously they have this idea in cities.
Yeah. This is not every city everywhere.
Right. But the idea is yes, you have traffic flow pedestrians not stopping the traffic flow of the cars. Yeah, so you want the pedestrians walking above the traffic. And you want the cars to not have to stop for the pedestrians and so forth. And that's where the cyclists don't come in because where do they go? Yeah. Okay, Ruben, so basically for our worst pick, I guess the criteria would be it hasn't happened yet with these predictions. So which one do you think is likely to A, never happen, or B, the furthest away from happening?
Well, obviously, it won't be a computer in your pocket.
We have computers in our pockets, so that's can't be the worst.
Do you want me to say mine now?
Yeah, I have mine.
Okay.
Say yours.
Well, I feel like I'm going to get the title a little bit wrong. So my pick is that fashion would be scientifically practical.
Huh. Really?
To me, this is the worst one.
Why?
Well, because, sure, some of them are pretty dumb, like a floating city. Sometimes we'll have, pockets because it's practical to have a pocket. Or women's fashion, they have no pockets because it's not fashionable. There's never going to be a point unless there's some dire need, like military or survival. Will fashion ever be practical? That's the whole basis of those, tribes with the neck rings, elongating their necks, or putting bones through their lips.
Right,
You know what I
but
mean?
yeah, I just think I hear you. I think fashion will become scientifically practical before before we have floating cities.
Okay, sure.
That's why I think it's floating cities is my worst pick, because I think it's the one to least likely happen, or if it ever does happen, that we actually elevate people off the Earth but not in space. At this time, people will be wearing practical outfits, like Star Trek type thing. It serves a function. It's almost like a work dress, but it doesn't matter what you're wearing. No one's going to laugh at you for wearing those coveralls with pockets and a telephone and candies for cuties.
Hey, how dare you say such thing about candy for cuties? I get it, but I don't know. Just the idea that the way humans are would change in 20 years to me is redonkulous.
No, you're right. Yeah, but I'm just saying the worst pick for me is whatever is going to take the longest to get there, if at all.
I agree.
I agree with you. Don't underestimate the vanity of humans. All right. Well, with that, I look forward to 2020 and 20 and 20 and 20 years after that. It'll be interesting to see where we are 60 years from now ourselves. Wow.
I'll be dead.
I will be dead. So for our
Maybe someone will be listening to this podcast to get an idea of what people thought of the future.
Wouldn't it be amazing if somebody actually listened to our podcast and did the worst of our best picks?
That would be.
So to them, we thank you. And to all our listeners, future, past, and present, thank you for listening. Don't forget to review us on iTunes or any of your podcast listening devices where reviews are possible. Like us on Facebook, like us on Twitter. Thanks for listening. Remember, in front of every silver lining, there is a cloud, and we're here to help you find it. Have a good night.
All right, thank you for listening, everybody, and I do apologize for the demonic sounding ending to my voice at the end of this episode. So, yeah, that's all it was. It was an audio error. Hopefully you didn't jump ship and get scared. Thanks for listening. You guys are the best. For the few listeners that listen, we love you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.